Hey folks, what's going on? Welcome to the next episode of the Coach Gav podcast. This is number, I think, 8 on the video. So, I think formatting wise, it's easy just to kind of shoot the video, throw it up. I was trying to for a while get the two of them together, the audio and the visual together. But anyway, so November 5th, today, Wednesday, Wednesday, 5th of November. Just dropped Myla to school, little under the weather. She is, so it's all hands on deck at home at the moment. It's just like a phlegmy, chesty cough thing, nothing contagious or serious. Nothing serious if you're an adult with it, but when you're a child with it, it's a pretty big deal for her. So the last kind of fortnight's been a bit mental, not a bit mental, just been a bit full on, I suppose. Spoke in episode 6, kind of the longer one, kind of pulled the curtain back a little on my relationship with mental health and that kind of stuff. And well, that guy's just totally going the wrong way, so we're not letting him out. So you usually over kind of my 90-day training plan, one of the kind of the rules or one of the frameworks in it is to not miss twice. So you basically don't want to go 2 days in a row without training, because then it starts to become habitual and it's very easy to slip back into it. Now, I actually broke that rule last week. So it started off as being just a schedule-wise didn't fit in the session, and then I had a pretty full-on wrestle with my mental health. And I said, me trying to kind of push myself physically, even just a little bit. That's a benefit of the way I want to set up my program, is that even a little bit of training is beneficial. It doesn't have to, I don't think any of my sessions have been like going to the max of being like a sweaty mess lying on the floor after. They're tough. There's, it's they're done with design purpose. But anyway, but the energy for that was like, no, I knew I needed to do less, and I said, right. And I took a look at the whole picture. I'd done my first 90 days. I'm 30 odd into my second one here. I was ahead of schedule on my weight loss kind of guide, and so I said, you know what? I said, mentally, I just need to kind of take the foot off the gas a little bit and relax, so that I can kind of come at it a bit better, rather than just trying to kind of push and take on more. And that's something kind of a therapist, a coach had said to me prior, was that sometimes with my kind of mindset and personality, less is more. By doing less, I can ultimately achieve more, and I think that's the case for a lot of us. So I broke the rule. Now, nutritionally, I said, I'm not going to completely go over the top here either. I'm not like, it's like driving the car. I still had one hand on the wheel. Although for all our driving instructors listening, it's a 10 and 2 at all times. But yeah, and I felt fine with it. And then Monday, myself, Yolanda, we were off together because we were like ships in the night there the last little while, with the way things were. So we said, right, we'll just take the day off and go together. And that was nice to kind of relationship kind of reset. Not reset, realignment, kind of just getting ourselves back on track. And then yesterday, Tuesday, I was like, right, come hell or high water, I'm training today. I'm on my way across to work now to train this morning before I go in. And so now I know I'm stacking my wins back together again, along with keeping on top of, I suppose, I think where I'm at now, life-wise, career-wise, I need to put in a different structure mentally than I have had. I also didn't get an A in English in the Leaving Cert previously. So, and it's just because I know where I want to get to, and I have this big kind of before I'm 40 or before my 40th, December 1st, 2026. I want to get this coaching plan up and active and give it one good solid fucking run at it, because it sits in here on me the whole time with it, and then when I go about my daily life, and I see and I deal with parents and I deal with dads, and I see them just like, fuck, I said, there's so many of us that are not necessarily lost, but we're just living a loop. So basically, that's what this whole thing is. That's what the podcast is for. That's what the videos are for. That's what all the content's for. The TikToks, the Instagrams. This is what we're gonna do. Just like, I'm thinking 45 days is where we're gonna go with our trial. I think 30 days is too short of a training window to really see meaningful change. I think 90 might be a bit of a stretch to get people to buy into. That's where we're gonna go, mainly because I've done 90 before and I know it works. So I think we go to maybe a 45, and then we run a load of 45s, and then stack them up and get people involved in it and get the movement going and everything with it too. So that's kind of the first part of it, and this is all just to document it. So rather than just creating content for the sake of it, this is me kind of documenting my life, my family's life. Freya hopped on the podcast here the other day. She asked me, could she? And I was like, yeah, cool. So she's, and then I spoke with Yolanda. Yolanda wants to get on one as well. So just for us to show, the, just to show how it's all possible, to kind of, and not necessarily, oh my God, this is Hallmark picture perfect here. This is just more so that kind of what we're doing is real, relevant, relatable, and that when we inevitably hit these sticky spots and tough spots, that we're able to identify it and flag it and work our way through it. Because so many times our default, again, you'd have heard most likely about this fight or flight. God, that's some shake. Fight or flight mindset, or it's like a chemical reaction in the brain that when you're in these situations, you'll either jump in or jump out. And so it's more so, it's fighting more than flighting, really. But we hear fighting, we naturally think of, kind of aggression, physicality, kind of domineering or kind of dominant. You think of boxing, you think of MMA, you think of people fighting. But sometimes fighting needs to be more strategic and cerebral. Up here, there needs to be smarts about it. And that's because we're fighting. Every scenario is a fight in some ways. It's the fight between, taking the easy way. It's fighting between just curling up in the ball on the ground, which we've done, I've done, and shockingly, that gets us nowhere. So it's fighting against that and taking on the issue at hand. And that's kind of where we're going with it. So I would view what we're doing as, giving people we're a shop, okay, and people come to us with an empty toolbox, and we have identified the tools you need, give them to you. you ultimately need to do it yourself. Much like when I had my coach, and even with myself, when I looked back over why did I have such a hard reaction, or such a full on incident. And I was like, it's because I had come away from doing what I know I need to do to keep myself in that kind of framework, Um, so, and again, I've often described it as like stabilizers on a bike, helps keep your balance. It's also kind of like the lanes on a bowling alley. We get little bumpers up, and you launch yourself down it, and you can bounce on the sides of it. You're still moving forward. You're still going where you're aiming to go. You're still trying to achieve the same goal. You want to go down the alley, hit the skittles, hit the pins. So, but if you don't have those bumpers and you go off the rails, you're going in the gutter. And okay, so if we had, and it's having those bumpers and buffers in as many scenarios as possible throughout our life. I need bumpers for when I'm dealing with myself. I need bumpers for work. I need bumpers for my wife. Even that, I need bumpers for me and my wife as a husband and wife, me and my wife as mum and dad, me and my wife as kind of heads of the house. I need bumpers for all four of my daughters, and even at that, then the bumpers will differ. Um, you know, Especially Mila, the youngest. We need lots of bumpers because, you know, how I how I help her get through having a meltdown when she's upset versus having a meltdown when she's being bold. They're two different sets of bumpers. So we can't. It's like if the only two you have is a hammer, treat everything like a nail. Yeah, kinda, but also that'll only get you so far. And that's my big thing. My greatest lessons are from my dealings with my daughters, because the age range we have, we've 24, almost 23, nearly 14, and nearly 6. Um, it's being able to meet meet them where they're at, and this is something we've tried with clients over the last 17 years of coaching. Is that it's to go and find out where they're starting from. Let's say we all pick up a book, okay, and you could be on a different page than me. You could be on a different line than me. You could be on a different chapter. You could be on a so it's meeting that person where they are at and going with it. Then I can't go and the hold on. Let me try and word this properly. I suppose you can't strong arm them in terms of like me at nearly 39 now and Mila at nearly 6. Um, like I've done like what's the phrase 14. I suppose I really kind of started when Frey was born around then. So like I have a 14-year head start on Mila in terms of um, developing awareness, situational awareness, um, and so I can't expect her to have the same awareness on a situation as I am. So there needs to be, and even, kind of looking at how myself and Yolanda kind of interact and deal with each other, is that I've done more work. I spent more time doing this kind of working on myself, so than she has. So like that, when we're kind of going at it in terms of when we're kind of going through life and kind of when we come across a situation where we don't necessarily align, and this is and I suppose this is why we have quite a strong marriage, is that we're aligned pretty well, and there's a difference in being aligned well and seeing eye to eye. We don't always agree in terms of, say, the actual approach or method to any scenario, but it is a case of having the same end goal in mind. So we're aligned from that perspective. So that's what one I would say from a we cover a lot about kind of parents to kids, how kind of we work with that direction. But I suppose in terms of the relationship side of it, making sure you're aligned is important. And it's not about being totally agreed. And I think that's one thing that works well for us, is that we bring different opinions to the table. We bring different scenarios to it, and we would. It's not argue or fighting. I would say we would disagree a lot. Like when we're if you walked by in some of our discussions, you're like, Jesus, that's a bit full on, because we're both passionate about kind of the approaches we have to raising our kids and making sure we give them the best foundation possible for life as they go along. No, move over a little bit, car. Um, but yeah, it's always making sure we don't let a disagreement turn into an argument or a fight, and understanding that none of it's personal. No one's having a dig at the other person, and that's because we know we're aligned. And we've a phrase in the house where we call it same team. And we just sometimes you need a reminder that we are on the same team here. And even for like my ex partner, for Freya's mom, we're still on the same team as well. It's we're the same team. We're raising the same daughter. We just do it slightly differently, because obviously we're not a couple. We don't have our conversations are probably fewer and far between. We're in contact on weekly, but in terms of and Freya kind of spoke about it, but Freya and I spoke on her episode about it in terms of can there be a clash sometimes in terms of how me and her mom go about doing things, and like we didn't work as a couple for the reasons it didn't work, but in terms of as parents, and as it's I've always kind of made sure that kind of we're not like we don't fight, we don't badmouth each other. There's not like hey, and I don't want Freya, or even for Myla and the girls at home. We don't want to be in a case of where Mammy says no, Daddy will say yes, and you're undermining each other. So it's a case of like Freya might come and be like, hey, here's what's going on. I was like, okay, well, kind of, what does your mom think about it? What did your mom say about it? And depending on the situation, I will contact her mom directly, like, hey, she was talking about this, what's the crack, what's going on? And I'm like, okay, grand, cool. And we'll roll with it from there. And because Freya lives with her mom primarily, there is a bit more of what her mom says carries a bit more weight than what I do. So we try and kind of make sure, again, that there is an alignment there on it. And my conversations with Freya are more so trying to teach her how to view and tackle situations in life. We spoke about like the different buffers and the different, or previously we would have spoken about how we as people have, it's like Batman. We've many different outfits. We have kind of me dealing with myself, me dealing with my friends in school, me dealing with sports team, all those variations on it. So that's kind of where we go with it, and it makes life a lot easier, when there is an alignment with it. And I see people, acquaintances and all, and I see them fighting tooth and nail. And sometimes fighting is unavoidable. I get that. I'm not naive to the ways of the world, and that just sometimes we've always tried to be like it never minded us not seeing eye to eye or having disagreements. And especially early on, as a young man, I had to make sure I wasn't allowing myself to get caught up that any argument myself and Freya's mom had was like, I had to make sure it wasn't like, this is personal. She's trying to get one back at me. And again, without doing it, I left during the pregnancy. So I had to understand that by making that decision, I knew there would be not necessarily kind of, consequences, because sometimes there are consequences carries like there's a implied, like, there's a punishment, or it's the consequences. It wasn't consequences. It's just by making that choice back then, I knew it would have a domino effect or a knock-on effect. So it was, kind of being an adult and realizing this isn't personal. This is, it it's about what's right for, like, the baby, for Freya at the time, and even now. And again, even this carries on to with Yolanda as well. Any argument we have or disagreement we have over how we're raising Mila and Rachel and Shan, it's about what's best for the kids. It's not about an argument or things being personal, or, oh, you're just being petty, or you're just this, or you're just that. And an approach as simple as that can make things a lot better from a parenting perspective, when you realize it's not about you, it's not about me, it's about the child, it's about what's going on there. And now, because when you remove that, or they're trying to get back at me, they're trying to get level at me, or any this kind of nonsense, it's a lot easier. You're just going to go, right, okay, what's the best thing for the child? Okay, cool. And that's what's best for the child, full stop, end of story. You don't live in the what if, you don't live in the hypothetical, you're dealing with the reality of it. So, to kind of wrap up, sometimes it's okay to deviate from the plan once it's a planned deviation. So it's okay to break the rules you've been operating by, depending on the situation. And sometimes you'll have to just refer to your coach. Hey, here's the situation. Can we pivot temporarily and then kind of come back to it? Or going from there. And, where's my spot? Oh, here it is. So it's okay to deviate once you get back on track as soon as you can. And then once you get back on track, right, like, I know now I don't have the scope for the next couple of days, maybe next week or so, of, I don't have the scope of, should I take a day off tomorrow? I'm probably not going to take a day off training until, probably, I'm going to do at least 4 or 5 sessions in a row, get myself back on track, back in that habit again, and then go from there with it. And then you kind of make sure, seek alignment with the people that you're involved with in life. Make sure you're aligned in terms of trying to achieve what's best for as many as possible. So, so in our case, we're talking kind of families and relationships there as well. So make sure the main thing is the main thing. If you're dealing with the kids, make sure whatever you're trying to do is what's best for the children. And then if you're in a relationship, what's best for the relationship as a whole. My wife lets a lot of my nonsense slide. She puts up with a lot. And I let some of her nonsense go too. She does a lot more than I do. So, and it's kind of going grand. It's there's give and take and ebbs and flows and everything. So it's not always about being on the exact same page and seeing things the exact same way. It's more likely than not, you just need to achieve alignment, just to have that same perspective and outlook on the situation at hand. Saying, okay, kind of, whose method we use or how we do it doesn't matter. Just once, it's the best possible result for as many involved as you can be. Leave your ego at the door when it comes to your relationships. All relationships, not just romantic ones. Relationship with your kids, relationships with your, and that's probably possibly the best way to do it. It's a very freeing way to do it. And when you're freer, when I leave my ego at the door, and it's something you have to get better at, it's, I can put that energy into being more patient, being more calmer, being more present, being more calmer, being more calm, being more present, being more approachable, and then that puts me in a better position to move to the next step or to get a result or something as well with it. Folks, cheers for tuning in. Hope you're enjoying it. Leave a comment, leave a like, share it, pass it around, make notes, ask questions, whatever you want. Just try and kind of get involved, and then the more we get involved, these conversations start going and flowing, and then this our little movement we have here starts kicking on. Cheers, folks. Good luck.